Chris Monzell has been a council member since 2005 and also served on City Council in 2001. He is employed as a business program manager at General Electric Aviation. He holds a master's in aero engineering from the University of Cincinnati and a master's in public policy from Harvard University. He is vice chair of the Spring Grove Village Winton Place Community Council. He is endorsed by the Republican Party and lives in Spring Grove Village. Welcome.
I have been on City Council for 7 of the last 8 years and ran for council due to my own neighborhood experience, living in Winton Place, which we now call Spring Grove Village. We've lived there for over 11 years, my wife and 3 children, and just the issues that we've seen in my own neighborhood calls to mind what other neighborhoods have been seeing and feeling for over the past several years throughout our city. And that brings up the question that you want us to talk a little bit about, and that's strategies for neighborhood revitalization during these tough economic times. And I think there's a few things I want to touch on tonight. I think the first one is utilizing what we already have existing in our neighborhoods. We are very blessed to have community councils in every neighborhood practically, and these are folks who volunteer, take time out of their busy lives to do, just for free, helping out with the city and dealing with issues within their neighborhoods. We have neighborhood business organizations as well in several of our communities. Again, these are volunteers who come together to work on developing businesses within their neighborhoods. And then also we have neighborhood development associations, corporations, that are existing to help with economic development that are occurring in our neighborhoods. We are so blessed, folks, to have all these groups who are volunteering consistently throughout our city that we need to touch and get in touch with them to figure out the strategies that they're using on the ground. I'll give you 2 examples. Camp Washington. Camp Washington, they have their own neighborhood development corporation, and they run a bingo. They run a bingo, folks, so they can raise money so they can help buy houses in their neighborhood and redevelop them. My own neighborhood in Spring Grove Village, our neighborhood development corporation goes and buys 1 house at a time, fixes it up, and sells it. And the little money they make, they pour it into the next house. And we're doing it house by house, block by block. Now, those are the type of strategies that we need to leverage and use across the whole city. And then also, I think one of the most important things that I try to focus on is making sure that the city's delivering those basic city services that we all pay for with our taxes. Making sure that the pothole is filled outside on your street, making sure your garbage is picked up on time, make sure that your street is swept, make sure that the snow is removed so that we can have people living, working, and raising a family in our neighborhoods. Those are 2 very important key points of neighborhood strategies, I believe, in these tough economic times. And the third one to mention is something that Mr. Winburn brought up regarding selling the railroad. You know, I think folks forget, we sold Blue Ash Airport for $30 million, folks. $30 million. And the mayor has dedicated $10 million of that for a streetcar that was going to be for just 2 neighborhoods. The $30 million was supposed to go to all 52 neighborhoods, and he's taken 33% of it and just putting in the streetcar project for 2 neighborhoods. To me, that is just the wrong thing to do, and we have money there to do neighborhood economic development. Thank you.
Mr. Monzell, to reduce the upcoming budget deficit, what specific areas would you cut?
I think that's a very good question. The specific areas, I believe, are ones that I think are duplicative services that we can combine with the county. I think our planning department is one that can be handled by the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. Economic development can be handled by the Port Authority. We could look at utilizing other county resources in regards to our parks and recs and how we can handle with the Hamilton County Park District. I think there is many opportunities that we can leverage by, duplicative services that the county provide that we can do. Another one is the county prosecutor. There's a county prosecutor and a city prosecutor sitting in a courtroom at the same time. Again, there are many opportunities, and those are just some of the ones off the top of my head that I think we could do. One other one is looking at combining departments in the city of Cincinnati. That instead of having so many department heads that are focusing on similar ideas about neighborhood development, that we created a neighborhood department that would handle transportation, that would handle economic development, that would handle community development, that would handle things for the neighborhoods and not have separate departments. And you can get rid of those big salaries. Thank you.
Mr. Monzell, one thing in this long evening that we haven't talked about is the foreclosure problem in Cincinnati. And most people in the city seem to focus on it after the fact that it leaves vacant buildings, abandoned vacant buildings in many of our neighborhoods. And we see our neighbors disappearing in the middle of the night because they're too embarrassed to tell anyone of their financial problems. But there also, I mean, this bleeding of the foreclosures is continuing at a high pace, and as unemployment continues, it will continue in Cincinnati. Can you give any ideas of what the city can do, not so much after the fact, but to help prevent the foreclosures that are now going on?
That's a great question, because it is a very important issue that is still hasn't been resolved, and it's still facing the city. The city created with I believe it was the United Way and Channel 48. They did a kind of a program where people could call in if they were having trouble with their mortgage, if they're facing foreclosure, to get assistance. That was very successful. We had several, 100 folks call in and work on trying to prevent a foreclosure happening. We need to continue those type of efforts. And I know Councilmember Birding was one of the ones that led it, and I think it's a very good idea because it's outside the box. It's saying, how can we be proactive to get these folks in, to get counseling, to get help so that they don't go into foreclosure in the middle of the night and leave, and just we have light now happening in our neighborhoods because our homeowners aren't around. I think those type of ideas and initiatives are stuff that we have to continue to do because it's not going to go away. And working with our banks, working with our local banks. And the city has relationships with our major local banks in the city, and we should work with them in trying to help stop the foreclosure crisis.
Mr. Monzell, you mentioned that you would like to see the consolidation of duplicate services at City Hall. I was wondering, what do you think about the Cincinnati Police Department having its own budgeting section, its own human resources section, and so forth? Would you want to see those consolidated with the primary departments at City Hall?
Absolutely, Kevin. In fact, that was one of the ideas I put forward when we were going through all the budget mess this past 6 months when Councilwoman Lakita Cole asked for ideas. I said that we should be using one human services department, we should be using one accounting department. When you have economies of scale, that's where you save money at City Hall. And I suggested that as an idea to put out there. I think it's a good idea. I think that we need to look at every department and come up with savings in any way possible. And to me, that just really cries out for a duplication of services that needs to be resolved. So it is something I support, and I hope we can do.
Mr. Monzell, what is limiting the city of Cincinnati from developing its downtown living in regards to affordable housing, and how do you plan to change that if elected?
Well, it's a very good question. I think actually our downtown living has actually been increasing if you look at the number of people who have been moving in downtown since I've been on council. So we have been doing a lot with our development, as Ms. Quinlan has said, in regards to over the Rhine, but also downtown as well in our central business district. And one key component of that is finishing the Banks project, which to me is another project that the streetcar is going to take $25 million from, if they build it, from the Banks project. So we have to focus on getting some stuff done first. That's going to be a critical component for jobs, economic development, and for housing opportunities. Affordable housing, again, I think there are many avenues of affordable housing. Our City West project that we have over in the West End is a perfect example, that there's plenty of opportunities there that are not getting filled. So I think we have been doing these things over the past several years, and we just got to continue it and make sure that those houses and living quarters are filled and not sitting empty as some are right now. I too want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, for the Greenwich, for the League of Women Voters, and for our panel for these great questions and discussion regarding the issues that are facing our city. This is a very important election, and I recall back to my dad's story. My dad moved here from out of town. He grew up in Indiana, Indianapolis. He got a job here as an engineer, and his first apartment was actually right down the street at People's Corner. And I look back to see his experience here and what it is today and how far we have to go. We have to go in regard to fighting crime. We have to go with regard to getting jobs. We have to go in improving the quality of life in our neighborhoods again, because, folks, this neighborhood is not the same one that my father lived in when he first moved here to Cincinnati. And what we have to do, whoever's elected to city council, hopefully myself, is to make our city back to where it was, to be the most livable city in the United States of America. It was that one day, and we can get there again. But we have to do it by focusing on our basic city services, by cutting the waste out of our government processes, and by doing the best we can when we're at City Hall. So please vote Monzell on November 3rd. Thank you very much.